What's up,
Yeah.
guys? What's up, everybody? All right, we're gonna get this thing started. We're predicting Final Fantasy today. We're gonna update our predictions. Like we've made predictions. I don't know, about 6 months ago. We made our little 2022 predictions, and I think we're gonna update it now that we have some new information on Final Fantasy 16. It's just a little bit of new information on that, and then we're gonna kind of like cascading effect of where that brings Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 2. And we just kind of have some thoughts we're gonna share. Once that's out of the way, we're just gonna do it, man. We're just gonna talk. You guys chime in the chat, ask us anything. That's always a fun thing to do. Ask us whatever you want, Final Fantasy related, and we will answer it. It is our we will vow to answer any Final Fantasy related question you have for us. So just throw it in the chat and we'll answer it. And then also, we're going to play a little fun game of Mad Libs, where Vinny has prepared a scene from Final Fantasy, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're gonna like act out the scene and with the new words that maybe you guys have helped us replace within this quote or dialogue or whatever.
I'm wondering if anyone's gonna actually guess which Final Fantasy it's from and what dialogue it is. I want to know if you can do it, but I want to see if anybody in chat gets it too.
Yeah. So this is the Final Fantasy Entertainment and Podcast Network, Final Fan TV. I am your host, the Warrior of Hype. And joined with me is the Firaga Fighter, Vinny. What's up, man?
Nothing much, man. Dealing with allergies for the first time in my life.
You're hitting an age. It's the age. Like I never.
I am
had
definitely an age. I am 100% an age.
Hit an age. If we're gonna talk about games, it's gonna be a very vague conversation today.
Yep.
But you've hit ages, man, where things like that start to bother you. Like for me, pollen and allergies never bothered me until I hit 30.
Me either.
And that's
me
it.
either. And now my face feels like it's exploding.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Person. I am 8 years old.
I am 8 years old, and today we're talking video games. Thanks so much for watching podcast.
And I suffer from things.
And that's it. All right.
Well, this kind of sounds like Mad Libs right now.
This is it. Yeah, we're just
Yeah, fill in the blanks,
banana
everybody
chicken.
at home. Yeah, I suffer from banana chicken.
Banana chicken. That sounds disgusting, by the way.
I can still hear you. 1 second.
Okay. All right, everybody, let's get this thing started. Today, we are going to be predicting Final Fantasy. All right, so let's do that right now, Vinny. Let's update our predictions of where we think Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 2, and then some other Final Fantasy games like Ever Crisis, and so on. We're gonna update that along with all the other information that we know. Okay, so this is gonna be interesting. Let's start with talking about the games that we know. Let's talk about that. July 22nd. These are my notable Square Enix release dates. There's more Square Enix games in development. Here's my my notable ones. July 22nd is Live Alive, if I'm saying that right, or Live Alive. I'd never heard of it, but
I think
got a
it's
lot of buzz.
Live Alive.
Live Alive. A lot of buzz behind this game, so I'm kind of interested in playing it. October 11th is Forspoken. So that right there off the bat, October 11th, Forspoken is the big one for me. I think if Final Fantasy 16 was to release this year, I don't think we're going to get it around October, obviously. Like, that's Forspoken territory. We gotta give that some breathing room. We'll come back to that in just a second. We'll circle back. Also announced for a 2022 release, we have Star Ocean: The Divine Force. That was announced for 2022. I feel like that might be one of those games that get delayed, though. It just feels like that. I don't know. And then Dio Field Chronicle was another one. Valkyrie Elysium, and then some other notable announced titles that are not for 2022 or they're just TBA. Dragon Quest 12, which is supposed to be a really darker take on the series and updating the new battle mechanics. And then the new Tomb Raider was just announced, and then Kingdom Hearts 4 was also just announced. All of these games utilizing the latest Unreal Engine 5. So I think those games are a little ways off. I don't think they're going to come out in 2022. Maybe 2023 for like a game like Dragon Quest 12 or new Tomb Raider. So let's kick it right off with briefly talking about Kingdom Hearts 4.
Okay.
I think the next time we see Kingdom Hearts 4, Vinny, I think it'll be in 2024. I think,
Like,
yeah, a
you
couple
think
years.
that's the next info dump we're gonna get on it? You think?
Just the info. With it's actually going to be a teaser, another teaser. It's not even going to be a full trailer, Vinny. I think what we saw was just kind of like, hey, it's in development. It's obviously not even in Unreal Engine 5 yet, like he said. But next time you see it, Nomura was like, the next time you see it, it'll be in Unreal Engine 5, and look even better. So that game is a ways off. Just the harsh reality of this is don't expect it within the next 4 to 5 years, is my opinion. And that's being, I think that's almost kind of generous. I think that's a generous prediction. So I say 2024. We see another teaser trailer of it running on Unreal Engine 5, of it looking as good on that engine as it's, I mean, it's just gonna blow you away. And then a launch of 2026. So we're going a ways off for Kingdom Hearts 4, but I thought I'd just get that prediction out there, Vinny. What are your thoughts on Kingdom Hearts 4?
So I was hoping that it'd be out sooner than that because, playing through the Kingdom Hearts right now, it does give me time to, play the spin-offs and the main titles and everything. But, I think I want it. I think I want it sooner because I want Kingdom Hearts to be able to redeem itself sooner.
Yeah.
Um,
Hey,
since
nobody.
Hey, how's it going? Since from what everybody's telling me, because I've never played Kingdom Hearts 3, and I'm playing through Kingdom Hearts 2 for the first time right now, and um, everyone tells me that there's like no Final Fantasy in Kingdom Hearts 3, which to me, I want them to just like double down on the amount of Final Fantasy in Kingdom Hearts 4. So I want to see
Right.
like that, I want that to come sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
But I also know that if they say anything earlier than the end of 2023 or 2024, I know it's going to get delayed anyway, so might as well just be 2026.
It might as well be 2026. Well, here's the good news, Vinny. I was looking at all of the possible the game releases. We just mentioned a few of them. So there's going to be some games that are going to fill in this gap. And one of two very, very notable games that everybody's got their eye on is Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 2. So for Final Fantasy 16, I'm going to start with that because I truly believe Final Fantasy 16 is going to come before Part 2. I think that game is almost ready to go. In fact, Audrey on Twitter, we all love Audrey on Twitter. Here we go. I can bring that up now. She has a quote that she translated from Yoshi P. We're in the final stages of development for the new numbered game in the series, Final Fantasy XVI. We aim to deliver a comprehensive game full of story and gameplay. Unlike an online game that involves many players at the same time, Final Fantasy XVI offers a different experience where it focuses on the individual player and immerses you in the story. I think it's a very fleshed out story. For those who have grown up and realized that reality isn't kind to you and have drifted away from Final Fantasy, we hope that Final Fantasy XVI will be a game that can bring back anew the passion that you once had with the series. So it seems like right there off the bat, Vinny, it seems like Yoshi P is addressing. He's like, I mean, it doesn't seem like it. He is actually addressing the. I guess the divisiveness that has arisen within the fandom about like, hey, I loved Final Fantasy 15. I love that game so much. It is up there in my. It's like an S tier, A tier game for me, but it is a divisive game in the series. Like people didn't like the direction that they're taking it. Some people don't even like the direction that they're going with Final Fantasy 7 Remake. Also, some people don't like that they're remaking Final Fantasies. They want new Final Fantasy experiences. And it seems like this is it. And then before, 15, we had 13, which was very divisive. 14, this is obviously Yoshi P's, 14 is Yoshi P's game, but that's an online game. So he's already just like saying, hey, it's like, unlike that, this is a single player experience. So with all of that said, he's addressing that right off the bat there, Vinny. So what are your thoughts on this statement in particular before we get into predicting?
I think that it's nice to hear from somebody and kind of make me feel like they're listening,
Mm,
because they're not totally shooting down or disregarding the fact that people do have complaints and that they are worried, um, and that it's we they know that we have a passion for these games enough to put out a comment like this.
mm,
So they know that the majority of the community love these games as much as they love making them. So it's kind of like a reassuring, like we're listening. And to everybody who has complaints and stuff, I mean, complaining about it is great. When you're passionate enough about something, complaining about it is great.
mm.
But it does seem like they are listening, so it's probably definitely worth voicing your opinion to a more direct source, like emailing somebody, or directly tagging somebody in something to where your voice is going to be seen. Because um, if you have a problem with something, the best way to deal with that problem is to just try and be active about it and uh, in its direction. So
Hmm.
it seems like they are listening, and that it's kind of reassuring that
Yeah.
they're saying that they're going to rekindle that passion that we've had. Because I mean, I like the new Final Fantasies,
Mhm.
um, but the best thing about the series, that even if I don't like one of their newest games, I always have their old stuff to fall back on.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
I you know
This is really cool of Yoshi P to be like, hey, we're hoping that this can be that new game that you fall back. Like this is that Final Fantasy that you've been waiting for,
mhm,
and that's just like, I mean, that's obviously speaking to not only those people, those fans, but also it's. I mean, this is exciting for fans that enjoyed Final Fantasy 15 and like, I mean, and those the recent Final Fantasy games. Like, this is not a shot at that at all. This is just saying like, hey, this is going to be an experience for those Final
mhm,
Fantasy fans, and here it comes. It's going to be a fully fleshed out story. He thinks it's a very fleshed out story, which was some complaints about 15. People thought that, I mean, it was Noctis's story, which I loved, but this seems like he's taking into consideration like, hey, this is a big world. This is a fully fleshed out world. It's an individual player experience. Over here, Subtext had a question. He's like, so no party, and he's like talking to Night Sky Prince. Individual player means, as opposed to online player. So like right off the
mhm.
bat, Night Sky Prince kind of nails it on the head right there. This is I think he's just saying like, hey, this is an individual, single player game. We don't know if there's party in this game yet, like a party system. We don't know that. It's I don't know. We'll have to wait until spring, which we're in
But
spring right now. But
at,
but
at
yeah.
at the same time, though, it's like everybody who thinks that they're not going to like it if it is a single person party, like, we don't know until we play it, so I personally didn't think I was going to like Final Fantasy 15's more action oriented combat system,
Mhm.
because I love Final Fantasy 10's conditional RPG combat system. But I like 15. I didn't think I was going to like it, because
Yeah.
I was like, if I want this, I could just play Kingdom Hearts. But
Mhm.
I liked it. I liked 15's combat. It was different, and I went into it thinking, I don't know if I'm gonna like it.
Yeah.
Same thing with this. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna like a Final Fantasy where I don't have a party, where I don't
Yeah.
feel like camaraderie or anything. But who knows? Because maybe a party just doesn't benefit the story. Maybe you need to feel like you're alone in the story. You don't know.
Yeah.
Being alone might, you know, further immerse yourself in the story.
Yeah, and like, where does he say it? Where for those who have grown up and realized that the reality isn't kind to you, I feel like that is about the story. That's not about like reality is not a kind to you and have drifted away from Final Fantasy. Like, I don't think he's saying like you've drifted away from Final Fantasy. That's not kind. I think he's saying the story, like you've grown up and realized that reality isn't kind to you. I think that's the theme of the story.
Right. And things
Um,
get lost in translation too, because I
True.
know languages don't really translate one to one all the
Yes.
time when with
Yes.
words. So,
So I think he's talking about how this is the theme of the story. And for me, that makes me very excited. If it's going to be a mature story, it's going to be about loss, that reality is not kind to you. This is my kind of game, man. This is my kind of Final Fantasy. I want this. I'm so excited about that. So let's talk about. Okay, go ahead, Benny.
I think this is going to be a real rated M Final Fantasy. Like
Mm,
Stranger of Paradise, I think had the
loved it.
rated
Fun.
M
Yeah.
and didn't capitalize on all of the rated M it could have been. But
Mm.
I think 16 is really going to,
God, I hope
because
so,
you
man.
you have that one part in the trailer where his like mom gets gushed and like it's just like he
Oh.
has mommy blood on his face and stuff, right?
I don't know if it was what was it? Somebody got crushed and blood
Mhm.
went all over this kid, and I, you know what I
All right.
mean? So yeah, I'm hoping the same thing. I'm also thinking like time has gone on, and I'm not sure if they're fully confident in releasing a Final Fantasy mainline as rated M. Like I don't even know what to expect.
Like Type Zero was M, wasn't it?
Yes, Type Zero
And
was
Type Zero
M.
did fine. I
Yeah,
think
I mean it
I
did
think
okay.
they need to lean into it.
Yeah. So I hope they really lean into it. I hope they're not like I hope they don't back off of it because it seemed like they were going for rated M and then like I hope they update it and then say, "All right, let's just go for the teen rating to get the, you know, this is for all Final
Mm,
Fantasy fans, so keeping it teen gives you a bigger audience and all that other stuff." I hope they lean into the rated M, but I just don't see them using like harsh language with the setting that
mhm,
they're in. I guess. I mean, unless they go kind of Game of Thrones style. Regardless, that's all speculation. Um, only thing the main point of this whole thing is that I'm just so excited that it seems like it's grown up and realized that reality isn't kind to you type thing. Like this is going to
mhm,
be a very mature story, and that quote right there gets me excited. The last thing we heard from Yoshi P was talking about how we'll have the next big info drop spring 2022. That was back
mhm,
when they announced the delay, the 6 month delay of Final Fantasy 16. He said we're about 6 months behind schedule, um, and he said that we'll have more information in spring. So to circle back to our predictions,
Oh, are
Oh
you about to segue into Remake Part 2?
no, I was gonna
Okay.
to give my predictions on like the timeline of Final Fantasy 16.
Okay.
Like where I think announcements to release. Um, so with them saying that they were 6 months behind, I'm just kind of reiterating what I said 6 months ago when they announced the delay. I had predicted that Final Fantasy 16 was going to release in summer of 2022, so that would have been around this time, in a couple months. Um, Uniqlo, which was just released their pictures for 35th anniversary of Final Fantasy, was T-shirts for Final Fantasy 1 through 16. They even had a Final Fantasy 16 shirt. This is probably not that big of a deal, but I feel like this was already something set in place, set in motion. This deal or whatever with Uniqlo was set in deal, or I'm sorry, set in place months before the delay. Like this was in the works. So when they released their images, I feel like that was already on a timed, release. Like they were just like, okay, on this date we're going to show off the shirts. We're gonna, release them. I think that was supposed to coincide with the release of Final Fantasy 16. Like I think we were supposed to be getting those shirts, building up hype and excitement. Final Fantasy 16 releases in summer. With Yoshi P coming out and saying that they're 6 months behind, like 6 months behind, that makes me think they were also going to show it at the Game Awards in December. So show in December, release in June. 6 months behind, we push that back. I think we're going to see Final Fantasy 16 very soon, which is what Yoshi P said. Spring 2022, we'll see more information. At the Summer Game Fest presentation for Square Enix, whatever that's called, whether it's called Square Enix Presents the Summer Showcase or Square Enix Presents the Spring Showcase or whatever, it's going to be around June. So at the end of May, around June, that's my prediction, during the Summer Game Fest time period, Square Enix presentation, we see Final Fantasy 16. and I think they dropped the release date in the trailer for Final Fantasy 16 during that trailer, and I think December 6th. I'm gonna pinpoint December 6th. That is a 6 month. It pushes everything 6 months, basically, going off of what Yoshi P said. Making it December. The reason why I choose December, because November is notorious for Call of Duty. You want to stay away from Call of Duty. I don't care what game you are. You just stay away from Call of Duty. Like, it doesn't matter if you're an RPG or not. Like, you stay away from that. Modern Warfare 2 was just announced. The logo, it's coming. They're gonna have an info drop. It's usually November. I think last Call of Duty was October though, so we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Check. But I think
they haven't announced it. Oh, you're talking about like Vanguard?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Vanguard was October-ish, but it's around that time frame, so you kind of stay out of that. But also, if you move it up any further, that kind of gets away from the whole 6 month thing that I was talking about.
They released November 5th, Vanguard.
Oh, all right then. Yeah, so yeah, I mean,
So
like,
November.
it's that November time frame that I think they're going to stay away from. If you go a month before that in October, that's Forspoken. October 11th is Forspoken. So now this gives it breathing room between Forspoken, and then November, and then December you get Final Fantasy 16. That's this year. That also kind of goes along with what Yoshi P was saying at one point, where he was like, I want to show the game and then have people excited to go out and buy the game. Like, that's basically what he said, like, rough quote. He was, I'm paraphrasing, I guess. He was like, I want to show the game, fans run out and want to buy the game. So I think he wants to show release. And in order to give enough time to build up hype and anticipation, 6 months is beautiful. So show in summer, release December 6th.
And that's perfect for the holiday season, because then you have people going to buy it for Christmas and all the other holidays that people share gifts in December. So I think a pretty astute.
Yeah, and if I was Square and I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, well, we can really work hard and get this game out this year, because I had also wanted to update it to say that they were going to release in spring. I wanted to do that. I wanted to be like, I think it's optimistic to say this year. Let's go spring 2023. But then I'm like, no, you want to stay away from that. Breath of the Wild was just delayed to spring 2023. You do not want to release Final Fantasy 16 at the same time as Breath of the Wild. Like, I think that they're sitting back thinking that too. Like, we jump ahead, we get in there in December, we stay out of that, we stay out of its way. Yeah, and then you could take into consideration of other games, like God of War for PS5 is coming out this year, supposedly. Big releases are coming out this year, and Final Fantasy 16 needs to find its place. And I think December 6th is a good spot for it. What do you think, Vinny? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts in chat as well?
I think December 6th is probably right on the money. Give or take a week or two. But it because your timeline makes a very convincing argument that if they're 6 months behind and they wanted to release in June or May or something, I mean, December would be their 6 month mark, and it's right around the holiday season, and then it's also surrounded by, you don't want it to get pushed back too long. Like, if it's not going to be ready until, let's say, February, and then they don't want to release in spring, like you said, because Breath of the Wild 2 was, I believe, voted the most anticipated, the next most anticipated game. You don't want to compete with that. And then the further you push 16 out, the further the more you have to think about other Final Fantasies or other Square games that are coming out that it doesn't want to compete with.
Yeah.
Because they're 16 it's a mainline title, so it's going to want all of the attention it can get. It doesn't want to have to share it. So, and especially if, there's a lot of people out there who are like, oh, well, I'll buy Remake Part 2 and 16 on the same day. Like,
Yeah,
I don't care.
course.
But then there are people who allot themselves like, oh, I can only buy, one video game every 6 months, and
Yeah.
you don't want to have to make those people choose this one or that one. So, I think it's probably the most strategic if the game is ready to be released by December.
Yeah,
Um, and the beauty and the curse of this day and age is if it's not ready, they always do hot fixes and patches and updates and stuff
yeah.
to fix it. Um,
I don't
I
feel like
would
that's I
prefer
don't think
not to
that's
see
Yoshi
that.
piece. I don't think that's his
Yeah,
style. That's
I
not
would
Yoshi P
prefer not to
style.
see that,
Yeah.
but that was cyberpunk style.
Yeah. Well, that's that. Hopefully, that never happens again. That blunder.
Right.
Another thing that I like to point out. We go over here. Elden Ring is in final stages of development. This was October 3rd, 2021.
Mhm.
So if Elden Ring was in the final stages of development, and who knows, like, I mean, obviously, final stage of development could be a span of like a year. It could be, it's a
Mhm.
relative term, but if final stages of development, October 3rd, 2021, Elden Ring. So and then it released what? When did Elden Ring release?
That was, I
Was it March?
believe, March 18th.
Yeah. So like October, November, December, January, February, March. That's 5 months. That's like a 5 to 6 months, bro. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like when they announced that they're in the final stages of development, and then
Hmm.
5 to 6 months later, you're releasing the game for Elden Ring as an
Hmm.
example. Um,
And Elden Ring was pretty complete in its entirety. There were some broken things in the game, but you're not going to find that out until millions of people are playing your game and you're realizing that, things are broken in it. So I think Elden Ring was pretty complete and self-contained
mhm.
at release. So if they're saying final stages, then and if final stages means 5 months and it's ready in November, like you said, they're not going to want to compete with Modern Warfare 2, so
Mhm.
might as well just push it back just one more month, fine tune everything, and then release in December.
Yeah. And like if we also go back to when the game was revealed, gosh, what was it? 2020 when it was revealed. At
Elden
the
Ring or Final
No,
Fantasy?
I'm sorry. Yeah, Final Fantasy 16. When
Okay.
Final Fantasy 16 was revealed in December 2020, uh, they were saying that we've already completed the. Basically, the game was complete. They're just
Hmm.
working on other things, like little like additional things, which basically means like side quests or getting the voice acting and all this other stuff. And then
Or
it wasn't
doors.
or doors, yeah.
Or doors.
Or invisible doors that you need to whack at for 100
Yeah,
times.
right.
No, like so basically just saying like they were done with the initial stage of development back in 2020, which makes me
Hmm.
think. And then they talked about how what they say it was like June of last year or this time of last year. He made an announcement saying that they had already kind of wrapped up the voiceovers,
Hmm.
like, and they did
Which is
English first. So they said with this game we're doing English voice acting first, um, and if that's already done, they've probably already been kind of working on the Japanese voiceovers and all this other stuff. And
mhm.
voiceovers are like I don't know from based off of my very little bit of Final Fan TV knowledge, talking to voice actors and stuff like that. It seems or it appears to be about 6 months prior to release.
Yeah, it's one
Um,
of the final steps,
it's
right?
one of the final steps. So if that was in June and then of last year or July of last year, and then they turn around and said, "Oh, we got to push it back 6 months," it almost feels like okay, they were supposed to release it in of summer of this year, and they had to
Mhm.
push it back. So it's just all of these things kind of seem to add up that they are so close to being done with this game, and they've been so close to being done with this game for quite some time,
Mhm.
is what it feels like.
So, so there are two things in chat that
Okay.
I want to touch on. So the first we'll do is the most recent.
Okay.
So SubTXT says, "I'm still thinking 16 will be a September release, and that's my hope at least.
Yeah.
Um, the sooner the better for me as well. I hope that I would love it to be in September. September is my birthday, so it'd be a great birthday game. I usually take a week off of work on my birthday, so
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that would be great. But Forspoken, you said is
October 11th.
October 11th. Okay, so September could happen. I don't. Is there anything planned for September,
No, I
like
mean
big
like
AAA title wise?
it's like that would be an interesting one because that would be like, hey, we're announcing the game in like let's say June. Let's just say that's probably around the Summer Game Fest, like my prediction. They announce the game and then they say, hey, we're dropping in September. That's a quick
Mhm.
turnaround. It's not unheard of. Like it's
Mhm.
possible. Like and it definitely goes alongside of what he said. I want to show the game and then people go out and buy the game, or pre-order it, essentially.
Mhm.
So it does sound good. September does sound great. It's definitely out of the way of big names like God of War Ragnarok. There he is, right there.
Mhm.
Subtext with another like saying God of War Ragnarok. I think it would be out of the way of Ragnarok because I feel like Ragnarok is a October November time frame.
Mhm.
So yeah, like it would be good. It could support the idea of my idea of like saying like last year they were going to announce it at the Game Awards and then release it in June of this year.
Mhm.
It could support it because it could have been like they announced it at the Game Awards and then released it in like March or April. So it could go with that. September
Mhm.
is I think maybe a little too soon though, in my opinion.
I think it's super optimistic,
Yeah,
but if we see it, I mean, I think at least we will see pre-orders being available September for Final Fantasy 16.
for sure.
I think we'll have a date by September,
Mm-hmm.
if not released by September. I think we'll have pre-orders and we'll get to see what the pre-order bonuses are, and we'll probably have some decent information. I think it's super optimistic to
Mm-hmm.
think September will be the release, but like I said, the sooner the better. I would love a September release for Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
Final Fantasy 15 Uncovered, which was like the big reveal of 15, was March 30th, 2016. The game was the release date for that. I feel like was like September, if I'm not mistaken. It was announced for a September release date, and then it was like, hey, we got to delay that to November 29th.
mhm.
So it's like I don't know if they would want to do that again, where it's just kind of like let's just give ourselves the time.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, that's one thing I wanted to point out. Yeah,
Um,
I mean, so with all of that said, I feel like we have some solid, I don't know, backing behind those predictions. For this year, we get Final Fantasy
um,
16.
and so the next thing in chat I wanted to touch on, because I was looking for a good segue
Okay,
off of 16.
you make it.
Fletcher Fletcher
Make your
Moose
own segue.
Fletcher Moose said that they are worried that the fact that Kingdom Hearts 4 has been announced means that it is ahead of 7 Remake 2 on release schedule. And I just wanted to say, like, my own opinion. I think they have two completely different teams working on those games, so I don't think you need to worry about, you know, like Kingdom Hearts 4 coming out first
Yeah,
before Remake 2. Like, I think their core teams are working on them at the same time. So I
yeah,
think we're still going to see remake part two before Kingdom Hearts 4.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I totally get what you're saying. Like, it's like, oh, well, this game's announced; it should be ahead of like, but that sometimes can get jumbled up. Like, games can be announced, and then another game can just be announced and released within that time frame. Like, we saw that with
Hmm.
Final Fantasy 7 remake. Like, it was
Hmm.
announced in 2015. You can imagine how many Square Enix games were announced and released in between that time period of being released in 2020. It's
Hmm.
it's just they just wanted to get the word out there. I guess it was a great time
And
being the 20th anniversary of Kingdom Hearts. They were just like, let's just give them something. It's running on Unreal Engine 4, and he's already announced that like the next time you see it, it'll be on Unreal Engine 5. So I think they are in the extremely early stages of development for that game, and we
mhm.
won't see it for another maybe 5 years.
But what we saw in the trailer looked really good.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
I know Daniel really doesn't like the fact that Sora has normal sized
Don't like
feet.
that. Don't like that. Bring back the clown feet, man.
But
Gosh, with my clown
just that
shoes.
that still image of them in the city fighting that gigantic Darkrai looking thing.
Mm,
I that was
gigantic.
I was like,
It's like,
wow.
yeah.
It's like that looks so and it it's meant to. I don't think that's definitely not a cutscene because you see health bars and
It
stuff.
seems
So I
like
was like,
gameplay.
that looks so good. That looks really good.
I kind of feel like that's all they have. Like
I know,
that's all
right?
they've developed in their like of the entire game. They've all only
It's
thing they developed was that.
just how
Oh,
like
dude,
Final Fantasy VII Remake, all they had was like that train scene,
yeah.
and like the game looks done, but no, they just have like that was it.
Dude, briefly touching on this again, like I don't know, I just kind of got excited. Remember that message I sent you guys about that image of what looked like it was comparisons of what they showed in the trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4, and then they
Hmm.
compared it to Battlefront,
Hmm.
and oh my god, hold on, I'm gonna
They
show you
look
right now.
it looks
Yeah,
like a mirrored image.
this is Kingdom Hearts 4. This is Battlefront 2015. And this is Battlefront 2017. And it's literally like saying, "Hey, here's that waterfall area. This is
Hmm.
this is totally a Star Wars environment."
I think we're seeing Star Wars.
Yeah, that's pretty epic, man. That's cool. So just kind of wanted to show that off. But yeah, so like back on track, Vinny. What are your
Mm.
thoughts on Final Fantasy 16? I mean, like I think you already kind of touched on it. I'm sorry, I think I'm repeating myself.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, it seemed
Yeah,
like
I was
you've already
trying to
touched on it.
segue into Remake Part 2 with that Kingdom Hearts
That's
4
an
Remake Part
excellent
2
point,
comment.
Vinny. I would like to segue into remake part two. That's the segue right there. What's up, Vinny?
There it is. So uh Remake Part 2. Now we've said this before in the past, um with and this might be unpopular opinion, but to me, like this is a reason why I don't like the fact that there's compilations to these games.
Okay.
How and the compilations are like I don't even like the compilation of Kingdom Hearts. I don't like how Kingdom Hearts is like so all over the place on different systems. I know that's
Mhm.
all together now,
Yeah.
which I could talk about how Chain of Memories does not work on console at all. But like so I feel like Remake Part 2 and Ever Crisis are competing with each other in
Mhm.
my mind, competing with each other with like how much Ever Crisis can you release before
Mm.
Remake Part 2 or Part 3 or Part 4 needs to also keep up with it so that Ever Crisis isn't revealing stuff from the next remake, because I feel like remake needs to come out ahead of Ever Crisis.
Mhm.
So it's like I know the compilation jumped ahead of remake part 2 with the a path of two smiles,
Yeah.
or what
The
was it?
oh my god, you get the Tale of Two Pasts? No, wait, you get
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Traces of Two Pasts.
Traces of
You
two.
hit
Yeah, I
me
put on
from
the way to a smile
yeah,
and
on the
a
way to a
path of
smile.
two
I was like, oh
smiles.
god, I'm just messed with my mind.
Um, so they are ahead in that story in
A little bit, yeah.
Junon, on the Junon ship, and remake part 2. Like, so does that mean we're gonna see Junon in remake part 2? Are we going to see the ship going to Costa del Sol in
Hmm.
remake part 2? And if so, like I feel like Ever Crisis needs to kind of rein it in and be slower than the remakes coming out, because I like, unless Ever Crisis has it planned out to where they're gonna do FF7 original,
Yeah.
and then it's going to like time loop back to remake.
I would say that that's probably the circumstance here. I would say like Ever Crisis is more to be like you literally
Mhm,
just saying that you don't like how it's all over the place. I feel like
mhm,
Ever Crisis is to say, hey, here's the entire compilation into one thing.
mhm,
It now how they go about doing that, whether it's very bad monetization practices like they
mhm,
have been doing, which would be very disappointing. Um, but supposedly these story bites are going to be released every month, which is
mhm.
what the last time we heard.
Right.
We need to hear
That's
more information.
that's what I'm hearing in my mind. Like I remember them saying it's a free game,
Mm.
a free mobile game that's going to be released episodically every single month.
Yeah,
And they're going to make their money through microtransactions, which I'm fine with. I'm
yeah,
fine with microtransactions because that's, if it's purely cosmetic, cool.
yeah.
Um,
But we've seen how
but
they go about doing that too, which has been very like I mean, obviously welcome to the world of mobile, basically. But
Hmm.
for a fan of Final Fantasy, that's been an issue for me, and it's definitely a podcast in itself where I can talk
Hmm.
about all that. But like you're saying, like if the if the story is free and they're releasing that every month, that keeps you playing. Now we need information on how they're releasing the game.
Hmm.
What story are we getting first, or are we getting a hodgepodge? Like, which would be weird. Like if you got Final Fantasy Mako Reactor this time, and then the next
Hmm.
time you're getting like this before Crisis, and the next time you're getting
Right.
Advent Children, and
I,
I don't know. We'll see. Have to see
I
how that goes.
let's see what chat thinks before before I delve into how I think it should be
Okay.
laid out. But we have Fletcher Moose saying, whenever Crisis catches up, they could always churn out a few before Crisis plot lines. Give me more Turks. I agree. Uh, I agree. Give me more Turks, but I disagree on the chronology. If they're gonna do before Crisis, I think Ever Crisis needs to be in chronological order. I think they should start with before Crisis, or
Hmm.
I think they need to start where the story begins, which technically would be First Soldier, I believe.
That would be
Um,
that's a tough one. That's a tough sell too, because if you're saying like, because you can imagine more people are going to download the game if it's Mako Reactor One bombing mission.
mhm,
Like
right,
that's just the simple fact of it. Like it's you release Ever Crisis and it's before Crisis is your first mission and you're playing as the Turks. Yeah, I mean, sure, people are going to download it for sure, but it probably won't be as big of a pop off as if Mako
right.
Reactor number one remade on your phone, Ever Crisis style. I think the big
I think
thing
that'll appeal to more of the fan base, and that's
exactly.
what you want on release. On that first month, you're gonna want the most downloads that the
Yeah,
game is going to get.
I say we get. I say for me personally, I say get through Final Fantasy VII original. Get through that. Do it all at once. Get through Final Fantasy VII original, and then jump back and do another compilation title. And this is going to run you for a long time. It'll keep Final Fantasy VII fans occupied with First
Mhm.
Soldier and Ever Crisis while we have a long wait, which we're going to get to in a second for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. And then the next part after that. Ever Crisis
Mhm.
will be that game that's kind of keeping you engaged with Final Fantasy VII.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm sure they have that storyboarded to where it's not going to give anything away. It's not going to. It's only going to complement. I feel like it will only complement.
I don't think it's going to give anything away. My fear is that they're going to contradict themselves at some point.
Hmm.
Because there's a lot of moving parts, or at least in my brain. Like I'm me big stupid, me unga bunga. So I don't like, I don't. In my mind, the way it's working right now is there's a lot of moving parts, and if the communication is off by just a little bit, because there are people out there who like are so detail oriented to where they could pick up on like one dialogue box
Oh
that
yeah,
throws off a different game completely.
sure.
And I'm wondering if like are they going to contradict each other? Like if something happens in Ever Crisis that contradicts something that happens in Remake Part 2, and
Mm-hmm.
then you're gonna have people say, was that a mistake or was that done intentionally? Are these two different
Oh
timelines going on? And it's
yeah.
like, man, I feel
It's
like
a lot of moving parts. You're right. Yeah, especially with that, and then the novels they got going on.
mhm.
I mean, you can only one can only hope that they have this stuff kind of sorted. Um, and let me see. Okay, I'd hate it personally. I can't wait 20 years for the story to be told. It'll take 4 to 5 years for every game. I'll get what you're saying, but the reality is that 5 games that 5 games would take an absurd amount of time in my opinion. They could, but god, I hope not. I don't want this ending when I'm 50.
Right.
uh
That's
yeah.
I'm on the same fence there. Like I am an age years old and I I don't want to be age years old when this game ends, you know?
Yeah.
And like I was thinking of that earlier about how like, is are people going to talk about Final Fantasy 16 in 20 to 25 years like we are talking
No,
about
7.
7 and 10?
Seems to be the intention for Yoshi P, it feels like, but yeah.
Right. But are people going to be talking about Ever Crisis and Remake Part 2 20 years from now, like we're talking about
Yeah.
7 Original and 10? You know, like
Yeah.
that to me, that should be. They set the standard. They set the bar really high with some of their earlier Final Fantasies to where, like, I feel like their intention for every mainline installment should be like, in 20 years, we want people to talk about 16 like they talked about 7. You know?
mean, it's true. Like, I mean, people are celebrating the people want Final Fantasy 8 remake. So these games
and
look
9
back on them. Yeah, I think I think the intention for Yoshi P and the team for 16 is definitely that. I know when 15 was released, I know that I read an interview in Game Informer where they were talking about how we want this to be on the level of Final Fantasy 7. Like, that was a direct quote. So anyways, I think that's always the intention, but with this is a unique thing. Like you're saying, this is released in parts. So Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 1, is that going... Obviously, they've already proven that 2 or 3 years after the game is released, two years after the game's released, it's still being talked about. So to answer your question, in 10 years, yes, this game will still be talked about, because probably part 3, yeah, I guess part 3 is going to be coming out soon, maybe. So yeah, like, in to kind of go off of what Subtext was saying, 4 to 5 years in between every game, it's possible. Honestly, it really is. Because, like, and I'm moving on to my prediction here for Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 2. My prediction, I'll just jump right to it. I think.
Hold on, let me ask you this question first.
Yeah,
it's a 2-part question.
Okay.
Do you think Ever Crisis is going to be released before Remake Part 2?
Yeah.
And if so, when do you think Ever Crisis and Remake Part 2 are going to be released? Your prediction.
Fantastic question, Benny. Fantastic question. Thank you for that. So I believe that Ever Crisis will indeed come out this year. I think it comes out this year. I think Ever Crisis will it will coincide with a news drop, because Katase's already come out and said, hey, it's the 25th anniversary of Final Fantasy VII. Stay tuned. We have more things. And I think he even directly said Part 2 will be revealed this year. I think he just straight up said that. I have to find the exact quote. I think when that happens, Ever Crisis will coincide with that announcement. I think it'll be a big deal. I think it maybe even be a 25th anniversary thing, where Ever Crisis is shown and then released. And Part 2 will also get a little teaser trailer as well. And I think the Part 2 teaser trailer will probably just be cinematic. I think it'll be like... I think we'll get a cinematic trailer, a little bit of what to expect in this thing. It's just something to get people talking about it. We might see some new gameplay snippets for us to theorize and speculate about. And unfortunately, though, I think after that, fans will have to wait a little ways, because they're going to show it this year. Final Fantasy 16 releases, they go radio silent on 7 or on Remake Part 2 for a while. Radio silent until probably summer of next year, 2023. They're going to show Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 2 more detail, and kind of follow the route that they took with the first Final Fantasy 7 Remake, where they show it at E3, which hopefully will still be around. I don't know. They show it in the summer, release it in probably spring, and that's why my prediction for Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 2 is actually spring 2024. I'm pushing it back to spring 2024. Like, I think
for Remake Part 2.
Yeah, I think they show it summer 2023 and then push it to spring 2024. That gives you plenty of time for Ever Crisis to release this year, and then go through some compilation games before Part 2 even comes out. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that, Vinny. I really do think, and I was thinking in my mind for the longest time, I was like, oh, snap, man. We're spring 2022, baby. Spring 2023, next year, we're going to be playing Part 2. I just don't see that happening. Especially if I believe that 16 is going to come out December. They're not going to turn around and release Part 2 in spring of 2023. They're not going to release that within the 6-month frame or within a year frame, I don't feel like. So that's that. I'm going spring 2024. What do you guys feel about that, Chad? I know Subtext said he didn't want to wait 4 to 5 years in between games, and that seems to be the case. But this is also me talking in a more like they're actually making these expansions on par and they're making them bigger rather than getting them out faster and releasing them smaller. I know that was a debate, an internal debate between Nomura and Kitase. Like Kitase said that they weren't sure. Nomura was like, well, I'd like to get them out as fast as possible. But it's like, I think they have a good system where they go part 1 intergrade and then wait for part 2 and then have a part 2 intergrade and then part 3. And I think hopefully they end it at part 3. That's and then that, if you think about it, 4 years, it goes 2020 Final Fantasy VII Remake, 2021 Intergrade, 2022 it doesn't matter, 2023 they'll announce it, they'll start the whole marketing campaign for it, and then 2024 they release it, and then 2028 we get part 3 and it's the final part.
And I like what you did a while back. You were thinking of like the part names. Like we have Final Fantasy VII Remake, and then I forgot what the other ones were, but I know you had like Final Fantasy Remake. No, you had Final Fantasy Reunion, and then like Final Fantasy like
Requiem.
Rejoice or something. Requiem, like all these re's, and I was like, I think it'll be really cool if they do that and they keep it 3 parts.
Yeah, I mean, Reunion makes a whole lot of sense for
part 2. Yeah,
Reunion makes a ton of sense, especially just for Final Fantasy VII in general. Like, Reunion is a big thing, and it makes a ton of sense. And like, it seems like a lot of people are thinking that it'll end in Nibelheim. That would be around the. I think there's some people thinking that it could end with the reunion at the Whirlwind Maze and stuff.
Rehabilitation is what we're all gonna need.
Rehabilitation is what we're all gonna need. Yeah, this is true. So, yeah, I think it'll be within a 10-year time frame. I think we'll finally get Final Fantasy VII Remake, the full thing, within the 10-year time frame. So 2020 to 2030 is my opinion. 2024 is when we get part 3 or part 2. I mean, what are your thoughts, man? Do you think part 2's? When do you think part 2 is going to come in?
Honestly, I've been trying to think about it, and like every time I think about something, I'm like, it's kind of dumb. Like my predictions, because I didn't analyze it as well as you did, thinking of like, I thought about it as Final Fantasy in a vacuum, and then I'm like, when you brought up like Breath of the Wild, Call of Duty, Forspoken, I'm like, shit, there goes all the dates I was gonna choose.
Yeah, and not only that, but like Square Enix released games like Tomb Raider, Dragon Quest 12, Dragon Quest 2D HD, Valkyrie Elysium, Star Ocean. Like, there's a ton of games that you have to avoid.
Yeah, so I think your predictions on this are pretty astute, and I think the longer they take with Remake Part 2, the better. I want it sooner because I'm a selfish consumer, but I want it to be good, and I don't want it to be rushed. So I do feel like 2024 is a gracious amount of time to where it can come out. I just hope each game doesn't take 5 years, because like Chad had said, I don't want to be 45, 50 years old finishing the series when it's like, I think I'm going to love video games forever, but I don't know if I'm going to even finish the series if it takes that long, because I don't know if I'm going to have the time or the desire to play video games when I'm Nomura, age years old.
Nomura and Kitase, they're in their upper 40s. I think Kitase might be in the 50s. I think they're on the same page. Honestly, do. I don't think they're going to be like, I don't want to be working on this until I'm 60. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So I think they're in the same boat where they're like, let's get it done, let's get it completed, but also let's release something worthy of Final Fantasy VII.
Right, and you also have to think of the people working on the game too. I mean, I saw this with Dark Souls. Like Dark Souls 1 was a masterpiece. Dark Souls 2 was amazing. Dark Souls 3 is where it started to like go a little downhill, and the developers and Hidetaka Miyazaki was like, you know, we've proven to you guys that we can make good games. This is going to be the last one, and please trust that we want to work on other stuff. Like they don't want to just work on Dark Souls for the rest of their life. Just like
Yeah.
this team probably doesn't want to just work on Final Fantasy VII Remake
I think they
for
even
their
joked
entire
about it.
career.
Yeah, I
Right.
think they even joked about it where they're like, yeah, we'll be working on this until we retire, which is honestly not even a joke. It's probably true.
Right, and
It's very true.
that kind of sucks because you want to work on other stuff. You have other ideas,
And Nomura's not letting that stop him, man. You can see he's got Kingdom Hearts 4 coming out.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He's still working on that stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I totally see what everybody's saying here. I think we will have to be. It'll have to be within the 2020s. I really do think it's a 2020s thing, and then I don't think we're going to go past 2030. Like, I don't think we're going to go past that. So yeah, it'll be the next. Like you asked, will we still be talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake within the next 10 years? Yeah, we're going to be talking about it for sure.
It's still going to be in development.
Because it's still going to be in development. But after that, I don't think 2023. I don't think it's going to go past that. So, but
or Remake Part 2.
For like I said, I think spring 2024 we'll see Remake Part 2, and then spring 2028 we'll see Part 3, and that's the end of it. Like, that's the conclusion of the remake. 3 parts is good enough, I think. Hopefully.
Yeah.
And they have it integrate in between.
I hope it's 3 parts because I feel like that would be like, I get, for lack of a better word, poetic justice. There were 3 discs on 7 original, 3 parts. I feel like that would be.
They could push it to 4 parts, and I'd be okay with it if the 4th part was like the freaking northern crater, and like it's just one big finale or whatever. I don't know. I'd be okay with it, I guess. But I think 3 parts is the sweet spot. It just depends on how much they're putting into the game. And I think with a spring 2024 prediction, I think we're going to get a sizable chunk of the story that I think will take us to the end of Disc 1. Like, I think it'll take us to the end of Aerith, hopefully the end of Aerith, whatever, the Sleeping Forest or wherever. I love what other people have predicted, where it'll take us all the way up to the weapons coming up. That's insane. Like, if the weapons are launched, that's like Mass Effect 2 all over again, where the Reapers are approaching Earth and the weapons are freaking love it.
And
yeah,
can I just say that I hope we get to fight Sapphire weapon this time, and that like it could still end with Sister Ray blowing its head off, but can we do something with it first? Because Sapphire looks so cool.
Yeah.
And you just see him in a cutscene.
That'd be badass. I would love it.
I want to fight Sapphire.
I can't wait for that. I can't wait for that moment though. Like, can you imagine the scramble? Like, they're getting all of the guns ready and everything. That was one of the coolest cutscenes when I was a kid. I loved it. I can't wait for that. So, anyways, those are our predictions for Final Fantasy within the year here, or like, I guess a few years. Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, Final Fantasy 16. We talked about those. If I put this on YouTube, I'm in separate videos. Thanks for watching this one. And then if you haven't watched the one where we talked about 16, go back and watch that. If you're just listening to the podcast, thank you for listening to the podcast. We're on all Spotify, like all the podcast things. I mean, we've got Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple, whatever. We're on those if you just want to listen to us rather than see us. Now we're going to do a game of Mad Libs.
Yep, which I've been working on.
Okay.
So chat, we need a noun.
Okay, so you've been asking chat throughout the show. I love that.
Yeah, we're almost done.
I think that's going to speed it up. It gets chat involved, where now I don't even know the answers. So now it's going to be like, we don't know or you do, but like I don't know the answers. So now it's going to be even more interesting when we have to read it off. So this is going to be, from what Vinny told me beforehand, was going to be a dialogue between 2 characters. So we'll be reading off the new dialogue with the words that you've replaced. I'm going to take a question right here. We got subtext saying, I've thought about Aerith's death in a 3-part structure, but there's a shocking amount of game after her death. I do think a good amount may be cut or skipped. Night Sky Prince thinks it'll veer off a lot now. I don't fully agree, but I could see that since we're changing Destiny. Then part 2 could be about 60 to 70% the same as the original, and part 3 might be closer to 30%. Yeah, subtext. Here's what I have to say about that. Katase said in an interview, Katase said, "Do not expect." I'm paraphrasing. I can't get the full quote, but he was like basically saying, expect Final Fantasy VII to go on the way Final Fantasy has always gone on. And then scenario writer Nojima was saying like, oh yeah, I write the scenarios with in mind that it's going to be like the original with some changes. I think that'll be the instance for the first half of the game, and I think then we're gonna start. It's just like part 1. Like the part 1 was pretty faithful up until like with what the heck is going on, and then like near the end of the game we're veered so far off from the original that it's almost unrecognizable. So I think that is how part 2 is going to go too. Like you're going to get your Junin, you're going to get your boat ride, you're going to get your I think once it starts going off the rails is when we get closer to Aerith's death, which is what the developers want you to think anyway. They want to either,
if that even still happens,
right? They want to give you hope, and this is my hope. I hope that they're just trying to give you hope that she won't die, and then they turn around and actually make her death even more brutal or more painful for the player. I hope that's how it ends. Like,
you know what I just thought of? What if they totally throw you for a loop and Tifa's the one who dies this time?
See, that's the thing. Like, we can go way off the rails. I think what they're going to do is they're going to stay on the rails, and it's going to be a little rocky. Like, oh, that was different. This is different. This is really different. This is getting just like part 1 did. And it's going to lead up to the Sleeping Forest to where it's like, okay, things have changed enough that now I'm starting to think maybe Aerith lives. And then maybe she does. I don't know. Maybe they go with that whole thing like, hey, we defied Destiny, and now there's going to be implications of that in part 3. Stay tuned, type thing. That's how I feel like part 2 is going to go. And then part 3 will be almost so... The setup for part 3 could be so different that, hey, this is part 3. This is the conclusion of what we've set out to conclude for the past 25 years. This is it, and basically the only thing that's the same is the world. We're not following anything else. You know what I mean? Like they could go that route where part 3 is not even a remake anymore. This is the end of Final Fantasy VII. That's where I kind of feel like they could go with it.
And trust me, I don't like the thought of Tifa dying either. I didn't like the thought of Aerith living. There's a lot of things I don't want changed about the game. I feel like if they wanted like shock value and to throw you off, I feel like Tifa would be the character that they would choose.
Oh man, yeah. As long as it's an emotional like death, like
it could be anybody.
Honestly,
as long as it's.
I'm like, I don't know if I'm okay with it, but I've already come to terms with this is not a remake. Like I've already come to terms with it. So whereas I don't believe a word that they say when they say they expect Final Fantasy VII Part 2 to go the way Final Fantasy has. I don't believe a word that they say. I believe that they're setting up a definitive conclusion, and part 3 could be something dramatically different. Like part 3 could not even... don't kill. What's up?
I hope they don't kill Red 13.
Oh man,
Fletcher Moose said, "Bro, they're gonna kill Red 13." I was like, Red 13 has like my favorite moment in Final Fantasy VII when he is with when he's with Seto and he howls and the statue starts crying, and I was just like. That like even those old graphics, like I can't imagine how emotional it's going to be with voice acting, modern music, the CGI, like all that's like that was an emotional moment when he thought his father was a coward and like really his father was the only reason why anybody survived in Cosmo Canyon. I was like, oh man,
that's another thing. Like they could also go that route where. You just get backstories, individual releases. Like, I don't know what they're gonna do, but I mean, I don't think they would do that. It's possible,
I want more Seto. I want more Seto out of
get like 13's DLC and then Barrett's DLC and like just getting all of their backstories while part 2 sets that up. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I truly believe that intergrade, like the ones in between the parts, are, I believe that they're meant to sum up the whole Deep Ground thing and the whole Dirge of Cerberus story arc. I think that's what those are for, and they keep that separate from the main story. I don't think we're gonna see Vice in part 2. I think that'll be like intergrade 2. That's my opinion. I think, like I said, they could go off the rails to where part 3 is almost unrecognizable, and then you don't have to worry about like, oh, there's still so much story left. It's like, well, no, it's actually whatever they write. Like it's a different story. It doesn't follow the original. It's they're writing a new story, a new definitive ending. So I just read one of the answers.
Yep. Well, it made it in there. All right, so the Mad Libs is complete. I'm gonna send it over to you.
Let me see. We had another chiming in chat, so I kind of want to catch up here. I do appreciate you guys chiming in. I love talking to you.
That's why we do it.
Yeah. Let's see. As weird as it sounds, this is coming from Fletcher Moose. As weird as it sounds, I feel like Aerith's death being so close to reunion means it works better to not end on her death. Or maybe she survived in the city of the ancients, only to die at the northern crater instead. I mean, it could be like a sacrifice play, where she casts holy there. Either way, I don't know. I don't like that because of Tifa's best character development happens in Disc 2. That's true. I mean, I just think Aerith should die. Like, I don't know. I just want to see some kind of finite death, right? Definitive. It's not like a whole comic book where Zack gets to come back to life. That's another thing that needs to be resolved for me. So it's like there needs to be some kind of definitive death in part 2, and it needs to be an emotional thing.
The death was basically the driving force for the party,
right?
You know, it was.
Now it's destiny. The hope that maybe they can avoid it, and I'm hoping that's how it is for the player. Like I'm hoping that they give you so much hope that you think it's going to happen, and then they snatch that away from you.
I mean, think about so with Aerith's death in the original, it was a driving force for the party. But also, if you think about it, it was a driving force for the player as well. Because what about all of those rumors and fake fake guides and all this stuff that people were like, oh, if you do this, you can get Aerith back in the party. There were all these secret things. Like people are like, oh yeah, if you you can do something to get Aerith back in the party and stuff. And right.
That's death. That's reality, man. Like.
That's death.
People wanted to do whatever they could, to try and get her back. And it seems like the developers wanted to do something similar with Zack. You know what I mean? It's just like, come on. But to comment on your point earlier, where you said, will people still be talking about this? My personal opinion, I don't think people are going to talk about, hey, remember when Aerith defied destiny? No, that's not. Nobody's going to be like, hey, remember when Zack lived at the end of part 1? Yeah, sure, people are talking about it now, but. I mean, come on.
Right.
Yeah,
that didn't define the game.
It's not something that lasts. It's not a lasting thing. And that's in my opinion. I mean, people could be pretty happy about it. So.
And for me, it's going to be in 10 years, I'm going to be like talking to somebody about Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I'm going to be like, yo, you remember that wild boss fight at the end of Final Fantasy Remake when you fought this gigantic harbinger of fate? Wasn't that strange? And now they're fighting coyotes and wolves on the, on the way to calm.
I'm just like, man, I don't know. I'm like, there's no way that they're gonna do that other than they could explain that they were in a dream or a different whatever, separate
realm of existence.
I love that one person pointed out on one of my videos about this. Don't expect Remake to be an open world because it's a massive world, not completely open world. And somebody said, "Oh man, it's smaller than the size of Pluto. That explains the gravity." And I was like, that's a really solid point. If it's a small planet, they can jump high. I was like, that's a really solid point. I like that. So maybe they don't have superpowers. They can just because of the planet's gravity. I don't know, but that's just being going really crazy.
But at the at the same time, then you wouldn't need a dolphin to, catapult you on top of this
Yeah,
high tension wire.
well, it could explain why Mr. Dolphin can jump that high.
That's true. But why can't Cloud jump that high?
Maybe it's really
When
really
he needs
high.
to.
Yeah, when he needs to. Why can't Cloud slice open that door in remake when he can slice a whole building in half?
Right.
He couldn't open that door though. But yeah, so there's just a lot of things like that. You gotta suspend disbelief for a second, I guess.
Mhm.
But let's see. I know everyone hates this theory, but I'm hoping Zach's in the live stream. You know what? I'll drop my theory right now since I'm never gonna make the video for it. I think it's like Lost. Like it could be like Lost, like where everybody was in that flash sideways thing where they're in the afterlife or whatever. What if Zach's in the afterlife, like in a
And
bubble that Aerith created for him? I'm just
all
kidding.
the Shinra soldiers he's fighting are just the Shinra soldiers that Cloud has killed. And then they're
They
going to
have to
fight
die
Zack.
again.
Like, wasn't that guy just blonde?
But yeah, so that was one of my that was my theory that I was going to make a video on, but I never got around to making the video. So somebody else will probably go out and make the video and take all the credit. But anyways, so to repeat, or sorry to repeat, but one thing I can't get out of my head, even though I hate it, if I'm future Sephiroth and know that Cloud recovering his memory is key to him defeating me, then I'm taking out Tifa. As a player, I hate that, but it seems like a smart choice for this version of Sephiroth. Yeah, but he
Or
also has to contend with, if I'm Sephiroth, I also know that the true threat is Aerith. Like,
because of Holy.
yeah, because she's like in the game. I mean, I know Sephiroth is completed by Cloud. Like, I know that's the whole thing. Like, as long as Cloud remembers Sephiroth, he is always going to exist. But Aerith is like, I don't know. I mean, he's got to stop Aerith from casting Holy if that's still his intention. We don't even know. Like, Sephiroth's intention might not be to bring Meteor down this time around. Like, it might not even be that this time around. He's got different intentions, I think. He's already lived through all that, apparently. So with all of that said, in my opinion, I think maybe he's got something else in play. The only thing that brings me joy is that reading On the Way to a Smile is learning about how Sephiroth casted out any kind of memory that did not like involve him, like any good memory of him being a person of humanity or anything like that. He casted it out and had the live stream throw it at the meteor. Like, only thing he held on to was his hatred, right? Like, Sephiroth is a villain. I love that. But what that does also make me think is like, well, if Sephiroth is always going to exist as long as Cloud remembers him, the only thing that can happen is, well, either Cloud dies or Sephiroth has a redemption.
Oh no.
And those are my only, like, and that's like not well thought out theories, because I mean, like, it's only me just spitballing ideas. I could back those theories with, if I had time to research and stuff. But I think, what if there's a bigger threat than Sephiroth? I'm hoping that's Genova.
I would hate that though.
Yeah,
I want Sephiroth to be the big bad. I want Vice and Nero and Genesis to all be like ants compared to Sephiroth.
No. I don't want, like, and that's a totally like touchy subject, because a lot of people either love Genesis or hate Genesis. I'm on the hate. I don't want to see Genesis stronger than Sephiroth. I know that he has a lot to work to be done, and he's going to come back and he's going to do something. He might be working with Minerva, and Minerva might be the main bad guy, like, rather than Sephiroth, all this other stuff. I don't know, man. Sephiroth is my villain. I don't want a Darth Vader arc. We've seen it before 100 times. I just want Sephiroth to be pure hatred and just stalk and just make Cloud uncomfortable, like he always does.
I want like Vice or Genesis to be like kicking the party's ass, and you're thinking like they're the big bad, like bigger threat than Sephiroth, and then like the party's getting their ass kicked, about to die, and then Sephiroth jumps in, just like destroys Genesis, looks at Cloud and goes, "Call me daddy," and then just disappears. It's
Call me daddy.
Like that. I want Sephiroth to be an even bigger threat than he was in OG. Like, I want him to be
Yes, yes. And that's
Mm,
what I see. Like, I see two different arcs. One extremely awesome arc and one extremely disappointing arc. And it's like, they could go either way. It really
yep.
could. Like, he could go redemption arc, or he could go with what Vinny is saying, and he becomes the most just like he should be, as he is, and as he was in the beginning.
Mm,
Like, Sephiroth is just the biggest bad of Final Fantasy, and they're gonna make it even worse. Like, make him
mm,
even like more villain. You know, like,
mm.
I want that.
And make Genova more scary too. Like I feel
Yeah.
like Genova was kind of a pushover in OG, even though this
Well,
all started
she was
with Genova.
literally pulling the strings.
Yeah, yeah, like the puppet master,
Yeah.
but like you
Get her
know,
presence more known. I love Dreamweaver. Dreamweaver
mhm.
was epic. That was scary. Like, to see Dreamweaver like that.
I can't wait to see Synthesis
I wonder if
in
Genova and
15 years.
Sephiroth have different agendas. Like, that's another thing. Like,
Mm,
maybe Sephiroth and Genova have different agendas, and then they're going to be at odds with each other. But either way, like, there's, or you can go the whole like, Sephiroth is Genova's knight, Genesis is going to be Minerva's knight, and then Cloud
mhm,
is Aerith's knight, and it's a whole battle of the life stream type thing. Like that,
mhm.
there's a whole ton of different theories that I've heard, ton that I've constructed in my mind, like on my own. Um, but they're all different, and that's the thing. Like, it
And
could go any way you see it.
I also this is like I guess completely random, but I want more of Lucretia and Vincent's story.
Oh
Like
yeah.
she has such a cool like she's in behind that waterfall in that like ice cave or crystal cave or something,
Mm-hmm.
and Vincent gets chaos from her, and like I feel like there's
Chaos.
just
I'm sorry,
I
I can't say it without saying chaos.
I feel like I feel like there's just so much more to like Vincent and Lucretia
Mm.
that like can be fleshed out rather than just like a like he's a secret character and then it's a secret limit break and you know like I
Intergrade part. It's the second intergrade.
Vincent's story
Vincent, you play instead of playing as Yuffie, you play as Vincent. I
Mhm.
really truly
and it
believe that.
becomes a first person shooter.
No, but that's funny. No, I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe they have to change the gameplay up a little bit. Well, we don't know how he's going to fight in part 2 either. If he's even going to be a character, we don't know. I don't know.
Right.
But I do believe that, like I said, I think Intergrade is the way to sum up the whole Dirge and that whole deep ground story that they had going on. I think they're going to sum that up over there. I don't think it's going to interfere with the main story. So like if you have Vincent settling his past with Vice, Genesis. Well, I don't know, but like Vice is in there and Nero, and he's settling his past with them. He's getting rid of Deep Ground, all of that other stuff, and it's all Vincent centric. You can focus on his past with Lucretia and like get more of that deep, like that background.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, like I think that could be Vincent's time to shine, is in an intergrade,
And
and yeah.
I hope Kate Sith is Scottish or Irish
Oh
accented
sure,
again.
yeah, I'm good
I
with
I
that.
I I hope because that was like one of the best parts of Dirge of Cerberus
Yeah,
was like your
yeah.
interactions with
I
Kate Sith, which
I'm
is
good with it,
so
man.
different than original. Because I hated interacting with Kate Sith in
Yeah,
original,
yeah.
but in Dirge of Cerberus, I was like, he's a
Okay,
Chad.
yeah. He's Chad Sith.
Yeah,
Uh,
Chad Sith.
but no, like is I don't want him to ride Red 13 though. I don't care how dumb it looks. It looked dumb in the original. Make it look dumb in remake. He needs to ride the giant Mog.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't want him riding Red
He
13
needs
either
to
because
have
I
the
feel like
robotic Mog, dude. Like,
I feel like that's you're just mixing two characters together, like what they did in Kingdom Hearts. They made Cloud and Vincent basically a mesh of two characters put together.
yeah,
It was Cloud wearing basically what Vincent
yeah.
wore.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like in Kingdom Hearts, where you could even see the cape movement, like
Hmm.
Vincent. But no, like I just want to see like Kate Sith look dumb in the original, make him look dumb. Can you imagine what that's going to look like in remake? I'm just so excited to see that. Like the big Kate Sith riding the animatronic thing, that's going to be amazing.
Hmm.
Peter was saying something here. I kind of want to. He said, "What do you guys think?" So I kind of got to go back. Oh wait, that was about the bigger threat. We've already answered that one. And then if part 2 is going to be
If
different since everyone is going to be alive, I reckon they go back to the past since Zack is alive. They find Jesse at the Golden Saucer. Um,
I think Jesse's dead.
I don't know. I don't think anybody's dead, man. That's the sad
I
thing.
think Jesse's dead.
I think she's coming back, in my opinion. I think she'll be. I think she'll be okay. She'll be in Zach's timeline or whatever. I think she's gonna be okay. I think we will get to see her perform at the Gold Saucer. The Ultimania thing. I can't remember who said it, but somebody was like, "I hope we get to see her perform her act one day." And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Are you trying to tease something?" Like, I don't know. I have lots of thoughts on that. I don't think Wedge is gonna. I think he's probably back too. Like, it just I don't know, man. That's my touchy subject for me because like I start thinking about it, I'm just like, why? It doesn't seem like any of the Avalanche members actually died.
Mhm.
So I do believe that
Which
he'll
was another driving force for the party. I mean, that was Barrett's whole thing
Barrett's
at
whole
the
thing.
Cosmo Candle.
It,
Like,
it yeah, it kind of takes away from his little moment he had in remake too, as well. Like if you have his resolution scene and he's talking about all the people that died, it kind of takes away from that because really all the people that he's talking about didn't really die.
right.
Um, so let's see. I cannot wait to see Nibelheim flashback. It's the number one sequence I'm looking forward to. Oh man, I did a whole video on what to expect with Calm flashback, and I kind of did a whole
Mhm.
like if you want to watch that subtext, you can. Basically, in the summary of it is I think it would be a great opening to remake part two, as it should be. Let's see, Fletcher moves. We can get on to the Mad Libs if you want. If you see any other chat that you'd like to highlight here,
I think we hit everything. Did we talk subtext with Sid's character arc?
oh
We have
no, I have thoughts on Sid.
he says, I'm very interested in how they shape Sid this time around. He's still going to be wild for sure, but considering he becomes party leader at one point, there is so much opportunity for his arc.
Mm-hmm.
I Sid is one of my favorite characters. In this day and age, I think they're gonna need to tone him down with like the domestic violence type stuff.
Yeah, I
Because his character is very aggressive. He has a heart of gold, but he's very aggressive, and I think
yeah
this day and age, people are gonna not like some of the things he says. So I hope they don't tone him down. I hope
yeah.
they don't change his personality, but I hope that they can write him in a way that no one's going to be upset about Sid as a character because I
I
love Sid.
I hope that I I get what you're saying. I'm
Mhm,
on the side of things that I hope that they do write him without holding back. Yeah, if people get upset, you should be upset about that. That's domestic violence. Yeah, you should be upset
mhm,
about that. But don't take his character away. That these kind of people live in the world. Like
mhm,
and people like this exist and people like this should have what Sid's character arc ended up being where he comes to terms like he realizes he was wrong, he tries to make it right and all this other stuff. But you can't sugarcoat it. Like that's one of
mhm.
my things. Like I don't want them to sugarcoat Sid at all. Like I want him to tell Cher to sit down in her fucking chair, you know, like and like
Mhm.
just and yell at her. Like I mean, I'm sorry that's something I want to see, but it's like that's his character. And it
But
needs
at,
to
at at
be
the end of the day, it's a video game. It's not a real person doing this to another real person. It's a video
right.
game.
It should make
Movies
you
do
feel
it all
that.
the time.
Yeah,
Right, movies
exactly.
do it all the time and nobody
Mm-hmm.
says anything because it's a movie and they're like, "Oh, they're just actors playing a role."
That's
Well,
right.
these video game characters are also just actors playing a role. They're not representing
Yeah.
anything. They're not idolizing or saying or normalizing domestic
Yeah,
violence.
no, right.
If
Yeah.
anything, it's bringing to light. If it makes you uncomfortable, then that's a good thing. That's like I'm watching this guy, verbally abuse this woman and it's making me uncomfortable. It's like, well then that's good. If you were watching this and saying
Mm-hmm.
oh, Sid's not doing anything wrong or whatever, it's
Yeah,
like,
that's a pro. Yeah.
it's more of a reflection on how you feel, and if it's making you uncomfortable, then to me what that's doing is bringing to light, like, that don't be if that makes you uncomfortable, then don't be that way to women or your
Right.
significant other or like
Mm-hmm.
whoever they may be.
And if you are that way and you're like maybe you're not aware of it, then maybe
Hmm.
you can have a more of a closer experience with Sid where it's like Sid realizes what he's
Hmm.
doing and it's wrong and he knows it. I would like to see, I think I said something about it might be balanced out by Cloud or Barrett saying something that's by subtext, and I was going to go that route too. Like they could have maybe like Cloud and Barrett step up, most likely Barrett to like because he's kind of like the big the big brother type thing.
Yeah,
Where
like the Guardian.
yeah, he could step up and be like, "The hell's wrong with you?" or something like that. Like,
Mhm.
like,
That shit ain't right.
yeah, like he can step up and make sure that the other characters don't stand for it, and
Hmm.
like have better writing around it for sure.
Hmm.
But I don't want them to sugarcoat anything. I don't want him to just be a an ass, but like not his normal, like what his character is supposed to be.
Hmm.
Um, so that's just my opinion. I don't think they should do anything with. I think they should absolutely expand his arc, of being a deeply flawed character and like with a past. I mean, like he struggles with his past, and which is what every character in the game does. But
And
like,
he's probably also one of the most passionate characters in the game.
yeah,
Like his dream was to go to space,
yep,
and he chose. You also have to realize, like he chose the life of Shira over
yeah,
his
and
lifelong dream to go to space.
that's a like that's something that people in real life like have to deal with, and
Mhm.
which is Final Fantasy VII, man. That's why I love it so much. It's like, I mean, people have to deal with that. You have to sacrifice your dreams in order to, you know, for something else. And yeah, you're bitter about it, like, but you need to learn how to get past that type thing.
Mhm.
So I
Like
think, yeah,
yeah, like how many times do you hear in real life, not just like movies or stories or whatever, but in real life, somebody you know might have had a dream and they had an unexpected child and they had to put their entire life on hold because they, had to take care of a child, and then
yep,
that child grows up thinking that their parent resents them because of that situation, and really the parent loves them, but they're just, they're just bitter on what could have been or whatever. But
yep,
like, I mean, that happens in real life,
yep.
and they're relatable characters, and that's what makes the game so great.
Yeah, and that's so. Yeah, I when it comes to Sid, that's our thoughts on that for sure. Okay, Peter. Yeah, we did talk about Final Fantasy 16. These videos will be posted on YouTube. I'm gonna probably post them separately so that way they're different categories and people can just click on the video that they want to watch the topic.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll have a Final Fantasy 16 video. The long and short of it, hopefully you still watch the video, but basically it was we think that Final Fantasy 16 will come out this year, December 6th. So if you want to know
Mhm.
why we think that, please watch the video.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a
Yeah,
lot that goes into
there's a
why he
lot
chose
to.
that day.
Right, right. Yeah, so yeah, please go back and watch that video when it's posted soon. But yeah, we think December 6th is the date that we picked. And there's a lot to go behind that. All right, now we're gonna move into the Mad Libs section of it. Uh,
Mhm.
you're absolutely right, Subtext. It has the richest set of characters, man. That's why it's endured. And it also has death and finale, like actual death, rather than people coming back to life like comic books. So that stuff needs to happen, man.
Mhm.
So or actually, ba 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 ba. I think there's a lot of opportunity. Okay, it looked like Shara. Yep. Make Shara stronger for sure. Okay, guys, thanks so much for chiming in. Love talking to you guys about this stuff. We go live more often if we can just like sit here and talk with chat. You know
Right.
what I mean? Sit here and talk with chat. We should go live more often. So you think part 2 released in 2024? That's right, Peter. We'll have another video talking about why we think 2024. But yeah, we think part 2 spring 2024. Or at least that's what I said. I think Vinny, you were. What was your final thought
For
prediction?
Remake Part Two,
Mm.
um, I agree with you that it's 2024 after hearing your reasoning, because like I said, I thought of Final Fantasy in a vacuum,
Yeah.
and then you were like, there's these games releasing, and then Call of Duty always comes out in November, and blah blah blah. So I don't want to go into the whole like why we think it's gonna go, so people watch the video, but um, you know, I need to stop thinking of Final Fantasy in a vacuum and remember that there
The
are other
industry,
games.
yeah.
Right. I need to think of the industry as a whole. And also, you know, uh anniversaries play a big part. Like people eat anniversary stuff up. So it's like, you know, they mean something. So
Hmm.
it's not unheard of where developers are like, "Oh, the game might be ready, but let's push it back to the anniversary." That might just
Yeah.
build more hype. It's all about timing.
Hmm. That's right. And Legend, that's kind of what I said earlier too. Yeah, I think it'll be within the 2020s, So I don't think it'll go past 2030. But yeah, 4 years in between games is what I was thinking, with intergrades in between.
And that's
Um,
if it coincides with our, it's going to remain at 3 parts.
yeah, and we,
If
we
it,
go
if it,
we go into detail of why we why we think that too. So legend, anybody that's just now coming in, well, I'm going to be posting these in separate videos. So whereas like they'll be topic related, so all you have to do is find the topic that we that you want to watch and watch the video there. So I hope you do that. But that's basically the gist of it. Yep. Within the 10-year frame and 2024, 2028 for part 3 or something. So now we're going to wrap this up because we are getting a little close on time here. Actually, we've gone 30 minutes over, but we love talking to you guys. So, yeah. So now we have Mad Libs here. So what we've done, Vinny has done while we were talking, is ask you guys for words to replace within this quote, this dialogue or whatever that Vinny has picked out. I have never read. I didn't even get to see what you've answered, so I don't know what I'm about to read. But let's see what happens. Vinny, you want to set it up?
Yep. So this is within a conversation, and Danny and I are going to be playing the 2 people at the end of the conversation.
Okay.
And I want to see if Danny can guess which game this is from and what part of the game. And you guys are also more than welcome to have your guesses in chat. So I'm going to start this off. Are you ready, Danny? You got it in front of you?
I got it in front of me.
Well, I haven't. Istanbul, let us go back. I don't want to see you liquefy.
You knew this was going to happen. My armadillo.
Yes, but I cannot gaslight this.
Kate Sith, I am wasted that you care for pizza so. But I have come to mangle grief itself. I will defeat chocobos and lift the veil of the vibration covering Scarlet Sexton. Please understand, Kate Sith. Lift the veil of the vibrator covering Scarlet Sexton.
Right. So, I assume that would be an earth-shattering vibration.
The vibrator of Scarlet Sexton.
So,
oh man! All right, so
I left some keywords in there that could kind of help you.
Grief itself is kind of like, now I'm thinking I will defeat something and lift the veil of. God, it's just like I'm going with Kingdom Hearts, like with like I will defeat darkness or lift the veil of darkness or something, covering I don't know, Scarlet Sexton. Oh God, what do we got, Chad? You guys know what you guys have any idea of? You have any idea of what this game is? It's Final Fantasy though, right? Like it's a Final Fantasy.
Yes, it is a Final Fantasy.
All right,
and
we'll read it one more time for chat.
Okay.
All right. Now pay attention, chat, because you have to kind of like, you're with me right now. We don't know what game this is, but it is a Final Fantasy. So help me out. Don't look it up. Like, don't look. Well, I mean, I don't know if you can look up the vibrator covering Scarlet Sexton. I don't. Maybe you want to look that up, but don't do it. Right?
I can't promise what you're gonna get.
Yeah, I know.
So what you're guessing which Final Fantasy this is and what part of the game it is.
Okay.
And so I'll throw in an extra hint. So the character before this dialogue starts, he says, "Well, I've said my piece," and then, "Well, I haven't. Istanbul, let us go back. I don't want to see you liquefy."
You knew this was going to happen. My armadillo.
Yes, but I cannot gaslight this.
Kate Sith, I am wasted that you care for pizza so. But I have come to mangle grief itself. I will defeat the chocobos and lift the veil of the vibrator covering Scarlet Sexton. Please understand, Kate Sith. What is this? The veil of darkness covering something is what I'm just kind of. It's got to be Veil of Darkness, right? Like it's got to be Veil of Darkness.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
What do we got? We got Final Fantasy X at Xanarkand is my guess, is what Fletcher says. Total Shot in the Dark, Final Fantasy VIII. I like when like the Final Fantasy VIII where he was like, I've said my piece. Well, I haven't. It kind of sounds like a Final Fantasy VIII dialogue for some reason. It just kind of pops out to me. Grief kind of pops out Final Fantasy IX. The Veil, like, I don't know. What is this, dude? What is this game? All right, I'm gonna go. Okay, I gotta guess something.
All right.
When he says, "You knew this was going to happen, my friend," I'm sure, right? You knew this was going to happen, my friend. Not armadillo.
Yes, it says my friend.
You knew this was going to happen, my friend. Yes, but I cannot do this. I guess
Nope.
I cannot fight this. I cannot go through with this. What? Yeah. Okay. Looks like we got some Final Fantasy X in chat, and you're a Final Fantasy X connoisseur. I'm going Final Fantasy IX.
You're going with Final Fantasy
I'm going
9?
Final Fantasy IX.
All right. So the actual
Okay.
the actual dialogue.
Okay.
Auron. Well, I haven't. Lord Braska, let us go back. I don't want to see you die. Braska.
No.
You knew this was to happen, my friend. Auron. Yes, but I cannot accept it.
Yeah.
Braska. Auron, I am honored that you care for me so, but I have come to kill grief itself.
Yep.
I will defeat sin and lift the veil of sorrow covering Spira.
God dang it. Yeah.
Please understand, Auron.
That's it. Oh no. God, as soon as you said Auron, I was like, I know what scene it is. Dang, that's good. That was good. Awesome.
That was when the memory and Jecht says he says we what does he say? He says we don't have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, hey Braska, you don't have to do this. And then Braska says, thanks for your concern. And he goes, fine, I said my piece. And that's when Auron's just like, I haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God,
But yeah, I was gonna go with the I feel like we need more people for it, but I was gonna go with the dialogue right before Uniluska's fight, where Auron's like, this is your story. Now's the time you choose live or die. But
yeah. Now's the time to choose, and you replace live or die. It's like, now's the time you choose burgers or hot dog or something like that.
But there's so many people talking, and then that one part with Auron is like, it's only like 2 sentences.
Oh,
but
yeah.
The way he says it is like drawn out. So I remember it being longer, but I was like, we're gonna need like one or two more people.
You know what we're gonna do next time?
What?
I bet Austin Lee Matthews would love this.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get Austin Lee Matthews, right, chat? You guys excited about
Yeah.
that? I mean,
Yeah, we'll get Austin Lee Matthews.
No promises,
reach out.
but I'll reach out to him and see if he dude's hilarious. He would love this. So there it is. Thank you, Vinny, for doing that. That was great. That was fun. I should have said Final Fantasy X. I should have known. I thought you were just trying to throw me off, man, because you knew I was going to pick 10 because of you.
I honestly figured if I picked a Final Fantasy X thing, it would throw you off because you'd be like, that's
because
gonna
it's the
Occam's razor.
Yep. All right, guys. Hey, thank you everyone for tuning in and chat and commenting, asking questions, being part of the conversation. That's always fun for me. I mean, me and Vinny love that, talking with you guys. You guys give us topics to put out. I'll probably put out like a couple different videos based on your topics that you suggested. So awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. This has been Final Fan TV, the Final Fantasy Entertainment Podcast Network. I will hope to see you next week when we do this again. All right. Vinny? Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
All right, man. Have a good day.
You too. Bye, everyone.